Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Islamic Awakening with me, Reza Ghazim. Spirituality in some Western strands is seen to be something that needs to be recognized, but outside of the constrictions of any particular religious framework. But how important is spirituality in Islam?
It is understood in most Western countries there is a growing trend where people no longer like to speak much of religion, except at the difficult or symbolic moments of life. Many claim not to belong to any religion even if they believe in something, but the fashionable word is spirituality. The idea of spirituality now covers almost everything imaginable that could give a breath of life or give meaning. Islam doesn't view spirituality separately from everyday activities. In Islam, everything is spiritual because all actions must be in accordance with God's pleasures. This week we went out and asked, what does spirituality mean for Muslims?
For Muslims it's something more important because basically we have in our life we got two phases. One phase is material, is living, and second one is everything has to do with the soul, because we believe in second life after this one. Then everything we do here has to do with this.
Spirituality, it is the days of joy when people find themselves when the God answers them and God delivers everything what they expect, everything. And that is the most important part of spirituality, is finding one-to-one with God and being honest with that power.
To answer this and other questions, I have Professor Tariq Ramadan with me today. Welcome to the program.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. I wanted to ask you, first of all, how important, can spirituality exist outside of the religious framework?
What is important when it comes to spirituality is for us as Muslims to understand the definition, because the problem that we have in the West is very often spirituality is understood versus religions, and the problem is that we don't know exactly what spirituality is all about. From an Islamic perspective, this is important and very deep. It's a very deep teaching that we have from the very beginning of Islam, was the Prophet's companions, for example. Some of them were more spiritual than others, but what does it mean exactly?
Before we go into that, can I just ask, what do you make of this attempt to consider spirituality? You said outside of the religious framework, because historically it is seen to be part of the religious framework. So is this something new, or is it historical?
No, it's not new. It's something that we had from the beginning. The problem is it's sometimes the people who are talking like this are confusing between spirituality and emotions. Is the way I feel, which the way I am with nature, the way I was with the environment, the way I can feel about life. Spirituality is not about this. So this is why I started by saying we can't go into this discussion if you don't start by defining the words that we are using. And in Islam, if you come to the Arabic language, you don't have one word to translate spirituality. Because if you come to al-ruhaniyya, which has to do with the-ruh, which is the soul, and then what we have, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. They are asking you about the soul, and the soul is from the secrets of God, and you were only given little knowledge about this. So there is something which has to do with the ruh in you. It's this soul, the spirit in you. The second word is كُونُوا رَبَّانِيِّينَ. Be imbibed, full of God's presence. Rabb, it's the Lord, so you have to be close. So you can understand here that the second word is connecting this life within with the Tawheed, which is the oneness of God. The second is come back to yourself. And there is a third word which has to do with tazkiyah. Tazkiyah is this purification of the self. And when you come to understand spirituality from an Islamic perspective, you have to connect the three words, the three notions to understand One, there is a spirit within you that has to be connected with the Lord, with with God. And the way you are going to connect with the Lord is through a purification process. So the soul inside needs an effort, a struggle with your own self to come close to Him. This is spirituality. This is the very essence of spirituality in Islam, and this is why it's connected with transcendence, with the oneness of God, with the very notion of Tawheed, and then it has to do with the purification process. And how are you going to go through this purification process? You go through this process by coming back to the rituals, and coming back with this mastering, controlling yourself. So there is an effort to free yourself from your ego. Freedom comes with discipline. So this is where there is in Islam something which is a deep understanding of spirituality that cannot be disconnected from the religious framework. And in fact, the religious framework is the only way for you to free yourself and to go towards this spiritual experience.
But some people would actually argue quite to the contrary, and they would say that actually religion constrains you, and because the rituals constrain you from making that connection, making that rub with
yes,
God.
This is something that we can find in the West, and why? Because through a very specific historical experience, for example, if you look at Christianity, but even if you come to Islam, I will come back to this, but to look at Christianity, they were so much focusing on rules, on the framework, on the rituals, that the rituals took the whole space and they were not connected to the meaning. So at the end, we are dealing with formalism, this is what you have to do, this is the way you have to pray, and then the very meaning of what are you doing this? The very meaning of praying was just you pray because you have to pray. No, you pray to remember Him. You pray with a purpose. You pray with a meaning, and the meaning of thing is exactly where spirituality should be. So there is a historical experience saying religion came to impose a structure and to be empty of meaning. So what we have to do is to reconcile the meaning with the rituals. So for example, and this is what we find with some Muslims and some scholars today, they are so quick by saying halal, haram, do this, and it's all about formalism, it's all about the rituals, and okay, where is my heart in all this? Yes, I have to pray 5 times a day. Why? Tell me which impact it has to do on me. It has to do on me something which has to do with the purification process, is the way you deal with your own self, to come back to the center. When you have a very powerful verse in the Quran, وَعَلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَحُولُ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَقَلْبِ, and remember that Allah intervenes. Allah's knowledge is between you and your own heart. What does it mean? Come back. So you pray to come back to the self, not just to come with the gesture. And then, look, we have it even in the Quran when the Arabs, the Bedouins, were saying, we are Muslim. قَالَتِ الْأَعْرَابُ آمَنَّا. That we say we believe. قُلْ لَمْ تُؤْمِنُوا وَلَكِنْ قُولُوا أَسْلَمْنَا وَلَمَّ يَدْخُلِ الْإِيمَانُ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ. No, say that you are following the rules, but faith is not entering your heart. So this is where it's very important for us to understand through what we listen to in the West. We say, religions are about structure. It could be true that we ourselves as Muslims are doing exactly the same. So for us, no spirituality without rules, but no rules without meaning. Because if there are rules without meaning, we are lost and we are creating a structure, oppressive structure, where it's all about limits and not about light.
Some of the tensions that you've described, people would say there are many parallels of this. In Christianity, you mentioned it, and perhaps other religions as well.
Yeah.
So what makes Islamic spirituality unique or different? Is it similar? You can find it elsewhere as well?
I would tell you something. I went and I stayed in India for a few weeks with Tibetans and with the Dalai Lama. And he is waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, reciting scriptures, very disciplined, and trying to get this spirituality. And you can feel that he's a spiritual person. It's a spiritual individual. It's a spiritual being. The difference between him and my spirituality is that it's not connected to the one. So it's about getting out of the suffering, cycle of life and getting this peace within, but in this life. From an Islamic perspective, it's completely different. Look, yes, you have to go through this, but there is one God to whom you belong and to whom you shall return. And this, between the beginning and the end, is telling you now it's not about dealing with your suffering. It's not about dealing against your own being. It's to reconcile yourself with the very nature. So this is why in Islam, nothing that is part of us should be denied. We are not denying our instincts. We are not denying our desires. We are not denying our being. We are not even denying that there are things that are bad within ourselves. وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. This is the way we were being created, with attractions towards bad things and attraction towards good things. What do we have to do? To acknowledge this and then to master ourselves with his help. So there is something here that we have in the Islamic spirituality. You have to remain positive, always positive. You try your best and you rely on him. You ask him to help you. You are in need of him, and you have to be very cautious not to think that you can achieve this alone. This is why among all the books that are sold in the West, the more important books are the mystical books about this Islam. And why? Because it's lots of meaning about spirituality. Why we have to be very cautious to make it very clear. There will be no spirituality if we are not, all the great mystics were very disciplined. It's all about mastering yourself. So this is why I come back to the 3 words. No way to come to the self and to be close to a Rabb if you are not going through the process of purification. And purification is discipline. While you read the Quran, while you pray, while you fast, while you give out of your money. It's all about nurturing, mastering, improving and reforming. So this is why when I talk like this, I can talk to anybody. Muslims and people of other faiths, they understand exactly what I'm saying. You know what? Because this is the natural way.
Interestingly, you use the example of the Dalai Lama.
Yeah.
And the religious tradition is somewhat different. If I can focus on the monotheistic and the Abrahamic faiths, Judaism and Christianity, would there not be more, what would make Islam unique compared to perhaps those kind of traditions?
No, on this, for example, why I took this example is for us to understand this relationship that, because you were saying at the beginning, there are people speaking about spirituality without religion. Yes, of course, we cannot deny this, and we have to listen what they are saying and understand that even there we find universal shared principle. With the Judaism and the Christian tradition, we have exactly the same. On this, it might be that this is exactly where we agree, that this is the common way between Judaism and Christianity. What the Jewish tradition is saying, one God, come close to him, and you have a very deep spiritual tradition. These are the people who are very close to the Muslims in Spain. Maimonides was very close, philosopher and mystical. The Kabbalah at the beginning was close, and many things that were coming. In fact, Muslims don't know their own history. They think that we took from Kabbalah. It's the opposite. We gave to the Kabbalah, to the mystical trance, by people who are rooted in the tradition. The same with the Christian tradition. So on this, we agree on many things. What is now special about the Islamic tradition is this very clear understanding that we have to come to the oneness of God. So this is for us this transcendence, this is the center. And the second thing is that this oneness of God makes him close to every one of us. We don't need a priest, so this is our difference. And it's not about law. This is the difference with Judaism, and this is the difference with Christianity. You need personal awareness, personal accountability, and involvement in this. And you have, with the help of God, the means of your own liberation. Because you are not a sinner, 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 you are not a sinner This is the difference with Christianity and Catholicism. And you are not only driven by rules, you are driven by spirit. This is Islam. So you can understand here the differences between the two other traditions.
It's interesting. One of the things that we often find is that when we're trying to manifest this spirituality, what shape does it take? I mean, how do we go about it? Because one of the things that you've said is that we can push the priest, if you like, to one side, but we've got our scholars. Surely they're a way of trying to understand that spirituality. So why are you shunning that, in a sense? Of
Not really. What I'm saying is that you have, in Islam, you have a direct channel to God. يسألونك وإذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب. If my servant is asking you about me, I'm very close. So Allah, God is close to everybody. So this is what I was mentioning. Now, of course, in our life, sometimes you need somebody who can help you, educate you. You can be your model. The best is the Prophet, peace be upon him. And then you can have, teachers, murabbi, people that are helping you to deal with your own self. Of course, nothing wrong with this, as long as they help you to come close to God, not to sacrifice them, not to worship them. The Chinese Islamic proverb saying, when the wise man is pointing out to the moon, the fool is looking at the finger. No, we don't look at the finger. You are but a means to help me to come close to God. So this is something which is essential in our tradition. Now, having said that, in our way of dealing with people who are helping us to come close to God, of course we have this. But at the end, it's a personal commitment. It's something which has to do with our own self, which is very important. So it's a call to everybody. Now it's for you to come. And this is where we understand spirituality is not to be far from the world, to isolate ourselves from the world. Many people are saying, oh, I'm too much an activist, I'm too much involved in politics, so now I have to educate myself, I have to come to a spiritual life, and they disappear. No. The Prophet, peace be upon him, was praying during the night to change the world during the day. So to be active. And spirituality means to put meaning in everything you do. It could be politics, it could be eating, it could be respecting nature. It's in fact exactly the opposite. Put the meaning everywhere instead of isolating yourself from everywhere.
Thank you for that. Some interesting points that we'll pick up on in a minute. We would like to keep this show as interactive as possible and really value your comments. Here's what you sent us this week.
This week we asked, how significant is spirituality in Islam? Ibrahim from the US says, spirituality is inherently important in Islam. We cannot access deeper levels of thinking without it. And Isa from the UK says, spirituality is not just about individual development, but collective development. A strong spirit allows people to deal with their affairs more efficiently and to help others contribute to a fairer, better and more equal society. And that's all the comments we have for this week. Don't forget to leave us your views on our Facebook and Twitter page.
You made the point about that you can be spiritual, that you can do all of these things while you're doing your day job, as it were. Do the spirituality at night, pray in the night, if you like. What does it look like? How does it manifest itself? So if we're doing whatever it is that we are doing, what makes it spiritual?
That's a good question, because it's not only the added value of the spirit, it's the added value of the behavior. When the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ, I was sent back to beautify, to improve the good character, the good behavior. What does it mean? It means in everything you do, you have to have the added value of what is good, the added value of serving humanity. This is spirituality. This is spirituality. Whatever is your job, you deal with human being. Honesty, respect, serving the people. You can work with your hands, you can work with your brain, you can serve the society. At the end, your spirituality is visible through ethical behavior. It's the way you are trying to be transparent. It's the way you are trying to serve the people. It's your positive presence. Spirituality is positive presence.
People would look at that question, the answer that you've just given, and say, well, a lot of people do that. You know, a lot of people do precisely that.
Yeah.
But, you know, where does spirituality come into that?
No, the question is they can do this, but why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And this is where, as I said, the connection with God is very important. The connection with God is very important. That it's a Rabbani has this connection. I'm doing this. I'm serving humanity to please the creator of humanity.
But that's not visible, is it? That aspect of it is not.
That's exactly the point. Is that spirituality is what is behind what is visible. Look at this. كنت خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. How is this verse constructed? You are the best community set on earth. As long as, in as much as, there is a condition here. You promote what is good and you resist what is bad, and behind it, and you believe in God. Why? Why in this verse you believe in God is not coming first? Because in fact, so what is visible? What is going to be visible out of your spirituality? You do what is right, you resist what is bad, and then you know that you believe in Him. So there is a driving force of your ethical behavior is that you believe in God, that you come from Him, you go back to Him, and in between you try your best. So you put meaning and serving Him, even with the poor people. إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. What is said in the Quran, we are giving you food for His face, for the sake of God. We don't want from you reward and thanks. It means that behind this, there is this driving force. So this is the way you are Rabbani, that you have God with you and that you are remembering Him. You are remembering His presence. And the highest level of faith is Ihsan. What is Ihsan? أن تعبد الله كأنك تراه. That you worship God as if you are seeing it. The scholars, some of them are saying, you know what, when you do something bad, He's looking at you. That's not the meaning of the hadith. The hadith is, He's with you whatever you are doing. So put meaning whatever you are doing, wherever you are. That's the very essence of spirituality in Islam.
And one of the things that sometimes people talk about is raising your spirituality, raising the level, the depth of spirituality that you have.
True.
How do you do that? What is it that you need to do? You know, you're talking about serving the people, you're doing this, you've got that belief, but then how do you raise it?
You know what? There is something which is important. How do you raise this? In spirituality is a way you deal with natural things. In fact, you raise your spirituality when you stop. There is a break, a fracture with what is natural. One of these experiences is 1 month during a year when we go for Ramadan. The month of Ramadan is a rupture with the normal life. So by now questioning something that you are doing normally, I eat, I drink, I have desires, I have my body, you stop and then you raise your awareness. And exactly the same when you are dealing with yourself 1 month during Ramadan, you come back to yourself. Now you have to isolate yourself and you have to contemplate. The Prophet, peace be upon him, was crying when he got one verse telling him about the beauty of nature, that there are signs. So the way you look at nature, the way you look at your fellow beings, the way you look at yourself, the way you deal with people, just pause. Just think about it, ponder about the meaning of things. Not only when the people are absent, you think about the presence. You look, your father is here, look at him. Your mother is here, look at her. Look at the meaning. Think about these things before it's too late. So this is the way you deal with your own life. It's an ongoing process. In one instant, sometimes you get more meaning than years. Be aware, be present. You should not miss that moment. So it's achievable. It's something that we can experience at every level as long as you are ready for it. And ready for it means be disciplined. And don't forget your own self. There is another verse which is very important. Don't be like the people who are forgetting themselves or forgetting God. لا تكونوا كالذين نسوا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم. Don't be like the people who are forgetting God he made them forget themselves. And this is the starting point of you being lost.
Thank you for that. Lots of interesting points that Tariq has actually touched on, which talk about the parallels with other religions, but also recognizing the uniqueness of Islamic spirituality, and also some of the parallels with some of the other monotheistic traditions, and the necessity of recognizing God and the belief in God being quite important, and the fact that we belong to God and then we're going to return back to God. And spirituality can be embedded in everything, or devoid in everything that Muslims do. Perhaps it is the Muslim state of mind, or the purpose of why Muslims do things, that enhances or hampers the spiritual development. The time is up for today's topic. I would like to thank Professor Tariq Ramadan for his views on this topic, and of course all of you at home for watching. Goodbye until next time, and another edition of Islamic Awakening.